The recommendations that we come up with in the next day and a half will be captured in a workshop report that the university will prepare and publish in early September at a launch at United Nations headquarters.
There is perhaps nothing more brutal and more difficult.
There are 65 million people displaced from their home.
46 million people living in slavery.
That's 1 in every 162 people.
You have a crime that is committed on a regular basis and a lot of impunity for it.
Second largest global criminal trade.
Billions of US dollars.
$150 billion per annum.
Kidnapping and sale of Yazidi women.
Enslaved by the Islamic State.
Smuggling of migrants.
Forced marriage, sexual slavery, and enlistment of child soldiers.
In a conflict situation, children are much more vulnerable to exploitation.
Human trafficking in conflict zones.
They're making money to fund conflicts.
The most brutal form of trafficking that we are seeing on a worldwide basis.
Only 1 in 100 people is currently rescued.
Given that human trafficking is now being used as a tool to fuel terrorism, these acts of cruelty and evil will not stop unless we intervene.
You know, when it's brought down to real humans rather than just seeming an abstraction, it's so incredibly powerful, and it just convinces you of the need to address the issue.
The first way to solve a problem is to acknowledge it. Once you acknowledge the problem, then you do something about it.
This is not a one-off convening. We have the opportunity to build a real movement for change.
The real purpose of the convening was to figure out a way of how to create a tipping point, how to have everybody begin rowing in the same direction.
In order to combat human trafficking, of course, there is need for a lot of collaboration from states, because the nature of human trafficking cuts across borders.
The reason why we haven't been able to tackle modern slavery, and specifically in conflict situations, is because we tend to work fairly separate from each other.
Being at Grace Farms has been an amazing opportunity to have a discussion that really runs at a higher level than what we normally have about these types of issues and this type of conflict.
We were able to have a dialogue with the United Nations by having financial experts and media experts and communications experts and academics and law enforcement all come together to create the momentum that we need at this time.
Bringing people together from different directions, from diplomatic side, from the UN, NGOs, which play a key role here.
There's a huge opportunity for the United Nations Security Council over the next 6 months to reflect on how its existing tools can be brought to bear to address human trafficking and conflict.
Out of this discussion, we've started to see some of the areas for action that are important. We can see that the UN needs to be empowered to take more direct action to end human trafficking. That was one of the major points of our discussion today at Grace Farms.
Our goal here is to have this discussion inform the discussion in the Security Council in December.
Civil society, NGOs, the private sector all need to participate. And as part of that participation, they need to maintain the pressure on the Security Council and the UN agencies that are delivering so much of the work.
That is a very complicated discussion, but this is not a regional crime. This is a global problem.
The stakes are higher, and a global community effort is needed to turn the tide.
This event has been a real revelation, hugely energizing.
Grace Farms isn't just a venue providing a space to have a talk. It's an organization that's vested in the discussion that we're having.
And I think that's part of the structure that we hope to create, is that when you're here, that you do feel there's hope.
And a recognition that while the system is doing a lot, it could be doing not simply more, but better.
We now need to make sure that all of that energy doesn't evaporate, but that we harness it and channel it in a way that we can create the tipping point on this issue.